question on Twitter related to when did when was the inflection in terms of government being one of the best conveners for developing solutions to now being a reticent convener in order to generate systems, solutions to complex systems?
So if you go back to 1969, and it's a difference between a complicated problem and a complex problem. So a complicated problem is going to the moon, and actually governments can be really good at solving complicated problems and organizing all the resources that are there to solve that complicated problem. And the US government did. They went to the moon and came back safe. So that's, I think for complex challenges, where the nature of the problem is even pretty ill-defined, let alone the solutions or the strategies, where inherently we know that we need multiple stakeholders to play their part in some coordinated way. Government is much less good in that. I deeply believe that they have to, if they want to stay relevant, they have to learn that to become a better convener for those kinds of problems. But currently, they're also forced to work in structures that actually prevent them from playing that role.
Very cool. Any other questions, Eric? Eric's first. He's the first to stand up.
I'm Eric Tam. I'm with This Fish. So we're a social enterprise startup launched by EcoTrust Canada. And we built an online global seafood tracing system, allowing consumers to connect to their harvesters. And as a result of that, we have a lot of software engineers. And we have been using the lean startup methodology that's been pioneered by Eric Ries from Silicon Valley. And it's now sort of, I guess, spilled over into the social side with lean impact and social good, and also lean government in the US. So I was wondering I just wanted you to comment on the whole lean movement and whether that's a big part of the conversations that you're having. And also, I mean, there's lots of great things said about it, but I was wondering if you have anything critical to say about it in terms of how to apply it to the social sector or government. And I'm not that familiar with Lean Gov, but I know that the Obama administration has been testing some pilots in the United States.
Yeah, so first of all, I must admit, I'm definitely not a lean expert and happy to not be that. I think that in the corporate world and lean startup definitely can is value. With lean government, I don't know. I have my doubts because creating public value versus private value is really something different. For instance, this whole notion of organizing your support and authority is something that is totally not part of the lean startup model. And for me, lean government it has sort of the premise we can do a lot better with a lot less resources, and if we just manage it well. And of course, there are efficiencies to be gained, but for me, it's effectiveness is far more important than efficiency, to be honest, when it comes to government. And I don't know if the whole lean concept is looking at that enough. Hopefully that answers your question.
Cool. So yeah, we got one in front. You got one here. You got one here.
Well, and then the chair. Who's first? Did you want to go? You're there first.
Catherine. I'm a recovered public servant. Recovered. Former. I'm on chapter 4, so I've been across all the sectors. I kind of am curious about the systems change and the wicked problem. I'm wondering when you know that the system has changed, I know you're only at it for a year now at Mars. So you probably haven't changed the system, but when will you and how will you know that? And can you give us examples of other labs in other places that might have solved a wicked problem or seen the systems change? What does that look like?
No, and that's a very good and important question, by the way, and a very hard one. So, for instance, with the future of health, what we've said is, well, at least we have as a goal to reduce obesity with 20% by 2020 in Ontario. Because, sort of talking to experts and reviewing the data, we know that if we do that, then that will be having really an impact on the cost development within the healthcare system. Will we then have changed the system? I don't know, but at least that's I think a system indicator that yeah, at least for I think for that period of time, 7 years is a good one, and maybe we have to continue afterwards, and maybe we can say, well, that's actually enough. We've saved the healthcare system. Fine. Quick example. I'll use an example from my own background in the Netherlands. We started to work on the digital gap, the digital skills gap, in actually 1999 when we started Canceland. What we saw was that the people who did not have digital skills and not access to those technologies, especially in those times, were people with a low economic, poor economic background and poor educational background, and those people were concentrated in poor neighborhoods of cities. So we set up a network, and we basically threw it open of what we call digital playgrounds in libraries and community centers. But instead of organizing it ourselves, we created a support system with some money from the government. We went to Microsoft and we said, could you donate free software? And we went to all kinds of ICT companies. And we asked them, well, if people set up a digital playground, which was basically a small center with a couple of computers where you could provide access and education, could you help set it up and manage it? So we created this support system. And originally, the government supported us for it to create 35 of these centers across the Netherlands. And we said, well, we think that we can do 100. And actually, to our own amazement, with the same amount of money, we created over 400 of those centers, and we trained about 800,000 people in 4 years. And when I say we, the only thing that we did was we started the network, and we created a support system. We organized conferences for all these initiatives where they could learn from each other. There was a website. We organized workshops. There were toolkits online how to do a course for seniors, for instance, or how to work with young people. And nowadays, if you look back and you look at the statistics, population statistics on digital skills, you see that the Netherlands is lower than, for instance, Germany and France and Belgium still in those statistics. I don't have a causal proof that comes because of that program. I only know that we trained 800,000 people in 4 years. But still, that was between 2000 and 2004. But still today, you see that there's a difference in the digital gap between the countries. So that is an indication. But it's very proof in that sense is very hard.
Great, all right, we have time for 2 more questions, so we'll ask them at the same time, and hopefully you can handle the complexity. So, first,
Hi, my name is Ravina and I work at the government. And my question is, do you have a specific formula for how you choose what project to work on?
oh, save that one.
Hi, my name is Michael Lenzner. I'm with a company called Aja, and we collect public data, some open data, about the nonprofit sector. So we pull in grants and contributions information from the federal government, Canada Revenue Agency information, and provincial funding information. So we know the most about what the nonprofit sector is doing in terms of who's funding what. out of anyone in Canada. And Canada is a leader in the world in terms of the amount of information it makes available to the nonprofit sector. I came to speak to say hello before, and my question was, how can I make this available to government, to fund, we sell our service to fundraisers and they see the value and obviously knowing who to hit up for money. But the funders make decisions without a lot of data often, so getting them to have that practice of using data in their decision making is kind of a non-starter at this point. And I'm wondering what ideas you have about that.
Good. How to pick a topic? It's definitely a good. It's a good question, and I think that basically there are three questions that you need to answer for yourself. And the first is about the problem and the nature of the problem. Like if it's a simple communication problem, then give it to a consultant, basically, or in marketing agency or whoever. But the nature of the problem is like, well, there's not a clear definition of the problem. It's a wicked problem. The solution is probably not going to come from one institution or one organization. So you need multiple collaborators or multiple stakeholders collaborating. That says something. So that gives you, I think, one element. The second element is about leadership. Is there opportunity for change? Is there traction? Are there, for instance, within government, is there an ADM that actually is willing to stick out his or her neck? I don't believe that 100% of the ADMs are like that. There are ADMs, and I've spoken even to some, that I suspect that they actually want to. Are there foundations that would be committed to actually admit that the way that they are doing their job now is at least suboptimal, and that they're willing to try out a different approach. So it's about finding the energy. Bill Young says you basically take a plate of spaghetti, throw it against the wall, and see what sticks. I think that's what an entrepreneur also do. You hunt your market. Where is the market? That's sort of, I think, the second part. And the third part, it has about to do with yourself. So is there a value that I can provide that other people can't? Is there in this process, in this problem, and to this group of people, something that I can provide that is maybe even easy for me to provide, whereas for them it's not? Because if there are heaps of other organizations that could do exactly what you do, but a lot better, you should really reconsider picking that topic. So I think that sort of that triangle, you have to make, and if it's all yes, and then you can answer that, then I would say go. And then still there's at least 80% chance of failure. So you have to be willing to accept that. The open data piece. Yeah, well, what I already said before the debate, I think one of your problems is you have in potential a great solution, but especially with the government, they feel quite uncomfortable of having it. Because do they really want to know the effectiveness of their funding and the impacts? Not always. So I think that a lot has to do with creating trust. Although maybe you're using open data, maybe your reporting should not be always that open. In that sense. And here again, I just spoke about finding your market. Maybe government-wide it's very difficult, but maybe there are pockets within government that are willing to go ahead on this and try it out. And on a small scale, you can basically build your track record. You can show that it works and that it actually has a benefit to them. And then you can use that evidence base. There's a great book called Agents of Change, written by Joeri. He's now at the Harvard Kennedy School, and they studied 8 case studies of successful social innovators. And two things that successful social innovators do is, one has to do with, and it's also a bit of an answer to Raza, is about deleveraging the status quo. So proving that the way it is done now is actually not delivering the results. And a lot of the people that say, well, I don't want to change my present way because the present way is good. Yeah, well, that's exactly then what you need to disprove, that the present way is not good. And actually, often we think that if we risk, then there's this chance of failure. But that creates a sort of an illusion that if we continue to do the same, that there is no failure, which is of course complete nonsense.